Lois Evans had to look for work for a considerable amount of time before she was able to find a position that was suitable for her. One of the most challenging aspects was the fact that the woman did not possess any form of formal education, and as a result, she was only eligible for the most basic and insignificant job opportunities. The whole idea of entering the bank, which seemed to her to be the embodiment of luxury and prosperity, made Lois feel ashamed at first. She made the decision to try her luck, however, after she noticed a sign on the front door that stated they were searching for cleaners and that they needed assistance. The fact that the young woman already had a child and was raising it without a husband was, of course, something that the director of the Human Resources Department was not exactly pleased about. On the other hand, the man was fully aware of the fact that the single mother was in desperate need of employment, and as a result, he gave her application his approval after taking a good look into her situation. Lois reflected on her journey home. Well, now I could finally treat my little Nancy to her favorite juice and some pastries, as she made her way back to her house. As a result of renting a modest property on the outskirts of Detroit, the young mother had to spend the majority of her salary on housing expenses. Nancy's mother was seeking for work, and unfortunately, the landlady who lived next door was willing to watch her as she traveled from company to company. Mrs. Martin was a nice and charming elderly woman who, despite her age, made it a point to always try to assist the sad young woman who had no family and had grown up in an orphanage. Lois did not have positive recollections of her early life. The only thing that she knew from the people that were caring for her was that she had arrived at the orphanage very shortly after she was born. The kid was left without a caretaker after Lois's mother passed away during her birth. However, the woman was only able to speculate on who her biological father was in real life because she had never met him. Lois thought to herself, so I guess I'm following in my mother's footsteps, let alone with the child in my care, as tears welled up in her eyes. Due to the tragic circumstances, the woman was unable to comprehend the reasons behind her boyfriend's decision to leave her just prior to the birth of their daughter. The most plausible explanation is that Glenn Stewart was merely a bad person who had developed a fear of responsibility and made the decision to shield himself from the burden of accountability. However, now that Lois had secured employment, there was a glimmer of optimism in her life once more. The woman was not frightened of tasks that required a lot of work, and she was more than willing to break a sweat in order to achieve her goals. Lois was taken aback by the fact that her first day on the job was not particularly nice. One of the primary reasons for this was that the employees of the bank treated the new cleaning lady bad, since they considered that she was squandering her youth by working in such a low-paying job. But the year that Lois Evans spent at the orphanage taught her to be resilient, and as a result, she did not allow her depressed thoughts to hinder her from performing very well in her work. When she first started working at the bank, the majority of the staff did not know the identity of the new cleaner. They also chose not to notice her because of the constant rush and bustle that is present in most financial organizations. When, on the other hand, the bank began to shine with cleanliness and constantly have a fresh sensation about it, the personnel began to appreciate the fervor that Lois Evans possessed. Samuel King, who had been serving as a director of this bank for a number of years, was particularly appreciative of her level of tenacity and diligence. "Lois, you are a real queen. Thanks to you, this place looks cleaner and better," Mr. King said, greeting the new worker with a smile. He wasn't sure why Lois's face made him think of someone else. Samuel King thought about this a lot, but he just couldn't figure it out. To get rid of his thoughts, the director closed the office and ran home quickly. His young wife was waiting for him there. Samuel and Kate have been together for 3 years, and despite the fact that they are over 30 years difference in age, they have decided to get married. It looked as Samuel King had finally discovered the joy that he had been searching for during his entire life as a bachelor. There was a profound love that he had for his young bride. Naturally, a significant number of the banker's friends expressed their concern to him, stating that the young woman had married him solely for his money. The man was so charmed with his partner that he was unable to see the reality, and as a result, he believed that those allegations were made by envious people who are not as successful as he was. During dinner, Samuel would often talk to his wife about his workday and what was going on at the bank. Since he was the director, he had to talk about the new young woman who cleaned the office and did a great job. Samuel also didn't forget to talk about how Lois changed his office so that it was now full of plants. The man didn't notice how angry the woman looked as she squinted her eyes and pursed her lips while telling his wife about the cleaning lady. "Who is that pretty new girl at work? She clearly has a plan, and she started by making my husband feel good. If she really wants to steal him from me, she wouldn't even notice because he's so trusting." Kate thought, "I need to go to the office and see this cleaning lady for myself." By the time she was 25 years old, Kate had already figured out what she desired out of life. She was not prepared to give up her position, the financial independence that came with having a mature banker husband, and the status that she had earned. On a fundamental level, it was obvious that Kate did not have any feelings for Samuel. Immediately following the wedding, she began to have an affair with her lover, and she continued to spend time with him even when he was away on extended work travels. The astute wife of Samuel believed that the new maid would diminish her significance in his life. Lois Evans, on the other hand, kept up her good work and didn't even know that she had turned the young wife of the director against her. As she talked with Samuel King for a long time, the young woman noticed how at ease she felt with this smart and kind man. "I'm sure I've seen you before, Lois. I just don't know how it is possible," the banker smiled and said, "but I just can't figure out where." "That is not likely at all, Mr. King. I lived in a home as a child. The caretaker told me that my mother died giving birth," Lois said with a sad sigh. It was clear to the woman and the rich banker did not share any interest because they lived in very different worlds. Lois got her first paycheck at the end of the first month, which went by very quickly. Even though it wasn't much, the young mother was used to living on very little. Even so, Lois still planned a small party for her daughter and bought her fruit juice and other treats that kids her age especially enjoy. Lois secretly wiped away her tears, but now they were tears of happiness for the first time in months as she looked at Nancy's happy face. When Lois woke up the following morning, she had no idea that her life would be transformed once more, bringing with it an entirely new set of challenges that would be extremely hard to resolve. Samuel King was taken aback when he discovered that his safe had been broken into and that some crucial documents had been taken. Both the hidden place and the safe were not broken into, which gave the impression that the theft was committed from within. It was clear that Samuel King had faith in his employees, and as a result, he attempted to avoid making any hasty judgments. Due to the fact that practically all of the staff members had been cooperating effectively with one another for more than a year, the director was unable to fathom the possibility that any of them may have been the one who had committed the crime. Samuel was surprised when his wife Kate helped him find the elusive thief. "Love, you should take a better look at this cleaning girl. There is no getting around the fact that the papers were lost almost as soon as she started the job. In addition, she spends a lot of time in your office," Kate said with a smile on her face. Samuel King didn't believe Lois could have taken the papers, but he thought it was still a good idea to look into it. Because of this, Lois Evans was questioned by the bank security team the very next day. "I don't know anything about any papers. I just gave Mr. King's plant some water. I don't even know what papers he keeps in the safe," Lois said over and over again as tears filled her eyes. Even so, the security team still accused the cleaner of theft because that's what the director's wife told them to do. Of course, they didn't have any proof, so their judgment was just a guess. Lois Evans was briefly fired from her job until the problem was fixed, as she didn't admit to anything. But the woman was naive to think that Mr. King would back her, even though he didn't really think she was guilty. There was no way the director could believe that such a sweet and kind woman could be a sneaky thief. "I need to find out what's going on. If she is guilty, we will punish her. If she isn't, I will personally say sorry to her," Samuel King thought as he went through his notebook of phone numbers. The banker was smart enough to know that he couldn't fully trust the bank security team. That's why he hired a private investigator to look into what was going on. It didn't bother Samuel King that the PI service cost a lot because he was sure the PI would be able to handle the case and find the real criminal. It took about a week to look into it. It's hard to imagine what the poor cleaning lady went through while she was being accused of taking and spying for rivals. "God, what did I do to deserve this? I did not do anything wrong," I just did my job," Lois whispered as she cried. The woman was asked to take time off while the probe went on, which felt more like being put under house arrest. The private investigator finally gave the banker the full report of the probe. The heavy folder held files and short bios of every bank worker who was there at the time of the theft. Mr. King stopped on the file of the new cleaning lady after quickly going through the names. What the banker learned from the single mother's file made him uneasy. Mr. King asked in a pale voice, "Is this true?" "Yes, sir, the file is full of truth." The officer smiled and said, "That's my job, and I'm good at it." Right away, Samuel King called his personal driver and told him to take the director to Lois Evans' house. As he walked over, the banker kept saying in a low voice, "No, that can't be true." When Lois saw the director at her door, she went pale and lowered her eyes right away. However, she did not hear charges. Instead, she heard something much more shocking and unbelievable. "Hello, kid. Could you tell me if your mom's name was Selena Lopez?" With sadness in his eyes, Mr. King asked. Lois was willing to hear everything but that at that moment. "Pardon me, sir? Yes, that is the name of my mother. She died a long time ago, and I grew up in an orphanage," the woman said in a low voice. But Samuel King already had the paper that the private investigator had found in the orphanage's records. The file stated that Lois's mother was, in fact, Selena Lopez. Her medical papers showed that she died of complications after giving birth. Not many people knew that Mr. King's first and only love was Selena Lopez. Because Samuel's parents were rich, they made the young people break up, which spoiled their intentions for a happy future together. Selena Lopez wasn't aware of it yet, but she was already pregnant at the time. The young woman from a poor family had to accept that their daughter would not have a father as she grew up. The girl's foster caretakers gave her their first and last name after her mother died. This became a link among the baby and her dead mother forever. "Oh my God, is that true? Just tell me, are you really my dad?" Lois asked with tears in her eyes. In answer, Samuel King only nodded, and then fought back tears and hugged his daughter. After some time had passed, it was discovered that the director's wife had been the one who had stolen the files from his safe and initially attempted to pin the responsibility on the cleaning lady. Kate was so desirous of removing her competitor from the picture that she was determined to do anything in order to accomplish this goal. She did not take into consideration the possibility that her husband could engage a private investigator, which caused the young burglar a great deal of disappointment. It didn't take long for the private investigator to discover that she was having an affair, in addition to the fact that Kate's lover was just with her for the money. The moment Samuel became aware of the affair, he promptly signed for a divorce. Adding that they had signed a prenuptial agreement prior to being married, Kate did not get anything in the split. Samuel's life took on a completely new significance after his daughter and his granddaughter came into his life, and it was now full of joy and laughter. On the other hand, Lois finally had a father figure in her life after so many years in pain, and she was no longer in a difficult financial and emotional situation.